Hello.
Hello. Hey.
Hey, everybody. I wonder if anyone is actually on time. Do we have anyone?
Yes, 4 people.
Oh, wow. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Live Feed. Today, we're Eathouse. For the ones who don't know us. And one of our collective members, Jake Caleb, is cooking sourdough today. And he's going to run through all of the steps of how to make that. We're in Attent Projectspace this time, which is a really great space in Rotterdam-Zuid. It's part of a community housing complex, I guess. And it's called Het Ootje. And they have an amazing garden, also full of like chickens and vegetables, and also a clay pizza oven, which we're actually going to use today to make the bread, right?
Fingers crossed.
We haven't actually used that oven for bread making before, but Jake's made pizza with it, so.
Yeah, slightly different process.
Bit different, but you know.
Even neighbor says hello.
Oh, hey. Stephen. How's the starter?
So what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, so like in the garden they also host events and gigs and festivals and all sorts. So it's just a really, really great place to be. And yeah, so during the process of making the bread, where Jake will be teaching me how to do it, because I have no idea, like I can't even keep the starter alive. So this is really, it's going to be interesting, I can tell you that. But yeah, we're going to talk about the history of grain, a bit about the politics, history, culture, all around the topic of bread and grain. Okay, and just to kind of introduce Eathouse to all the people that don't know who we are, hello to you. We are an initiative based in Rotterdam-Zuid, and we're basically looking to provide a healthy and affordable food and a generous meeting point in Rotterdam-Zuid. And it consists of 4 of us, and that's Jake Caleb next to me. Ulufer Çelik behind the camera today. Maybe she can like do a camera wave. And Merve Kılıçer. Always like find it really hard to pronounce her actual Turkish pronunciation. Kılıçer, I think, right? Yeah. She's in Turkey, so she should be tuning in online, hopefully. Hi, Merve. Hope you are sending us some sun, because we had a wall of rain this morning. And me, myself. Yeah, Vlada, Predelina, that's me. So that's all of us. And then this season, this is the 3rd event of the season of Live Feed. And this is, it's a series of 4 broadcasted events from different spaces around Rotterdam. And during these live feeds, we try to open up discussions about histories and topics about why this particular food draws us in, and how we can gather and form a community around them. So that's kind of the general what Live Feed is. And then just a bit about the format today. It should take about an hour and a half for the whole process, right? Yeah. Maybe. We shall see.
As long as it takes.
Bread making is a really long process. It takes 3 days. So today, so today is actually a little bit different from the last few events that we've done, where all the cooking was live. But because bread the sourdough making takes literally days. We have had to do a bit of cheating, and we've prepared some things in advance. But all of the steps will be, we're going to post this whole video online straight away. So if you want to rewind and you didn't quite catch something, or it was 3 days ago and you can't remember what happened, you can always go back to the video and rewind and play at your pace. And yeah, I guess we should just start, and I should stop talking. And I'll pass you over to Jake, who will tell us all about the bread, the sourdough.
Sourdough. I also, as a little caveat, I'm no expert in sourdough. This is not a masterclass you're about to see. It's more I have a particular interest in how sourdough I guess I'm interested in why so many people are enthusiastic about sourdough, but I'm also interested in how it kind of talks about the history of agriculture and the history of grain cultivation. And it's a little bit of practice-based research, learning how to make the bread, not quite from scratch, because I'm not grinding or milling the wheat, but almost from scratch, as much as scratch as I think is possible for myself. So maybe I'll start by showing you.
Should we go through the ingredients?
Should we go through the ingredients?
Quickly, just in case people... It's in the description. The ingredients are in the description, but just in case.
Okay. So we really tried to go to the local windmill.
We really tried. We tried twice. There's a local windmill literally across the road from here in Zuid Park. There's a windmill. Underneath it is a shop where they sell organic flour that they mill in the mill. And they, I think, are on holiday and they haven't actually so we haven't been able to pick up the flour this time. But we have some organic flour from another shop, so that should be good enough.
So,
but if you want to get involved in this, really go to this windmill in Rotterdam-Zuid. It's great. It's also got really nice honeys in there. Little tip.
So the best flour to use is the most organic flour that you can buy, and the fresher you can get it, the better results you tend to have. What I've got here today is tarwemeal, which is the Dutch version of kind of strong, plain white flour. And I've also got volkoren spelt meal, which that is wholemeal spelt flour. So they produce quite different results, and we're going to do a little bit of a mix today, because we're going to try and be economic with the grains that we have.
Tasty.
We've also got salt. So I've got sea salt is what I'm using. I normally use any kind of salt, but I'm trying out using sea salt, which perhaps goes with the more organic flour a bit better than some of the other salts. Then we have, I'll get to that last actually. Then imagine this is full of water. It's actually just an empty jug that I've forgotten to fill. But lukewarm water is the last of our triparte of key ingredients flour, salt, water, plus heat and time. That's all you need to make bread, which I think is a nice idea, that you can reduce it down to flour, salt, water,
Heat and time.
heat and time.
It's like 5-dimensional.
And what we also need is a little bit of pre-made starter. So I've got lots of pre-made starter. If you followed our little description on how to prepare the starter, you won't have anywhere near this much. I don't know if Ulufer can show us, but the starter is very active. There's lots of bubbles in the top of the starter. So I know that this is ready. I've been feeding this every day for 3 or 4 days, and feeding it a lot. So this is really ready to go. It should also smell sour.
Oh, it does smell sour. That makes sense. That's why it's called sourdough.
So
It's a bit like yogurt.
It's a process of active fermentation of the flour, and it's fermented by natural yeasts and bacteria that are in the environment. So they are attracted to the water and the flour, and then they produce a culture inside which starts to ferment the yeast.
It's the sugars, right? It's the sugars in the grains, I guess.
I guess that's what it's eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're attracted to. And so you have yeast, which is these natural yeasts is a fungi, and you have lactobacilli, which is the natural bacteria, what some people would call good bacteria, but then we're getting into ethics, and I'm not sure we want to even go there.
Maybe we do.
So there's lots and lots of yeast and lactobacilli in here, and perhaps now I can show you what we're going to do with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you didn't follow...
We had like an Instagram little reminder to feed your starter on Thursday. But if you weren't paying attention to that, here we go again.
So to prepare your starter, you can do this 2 ways. You can maybe, more than 2 ways. There's myriad ways to do.
Just do your way, I think.
Okay, so someone gave me a starter. They were already baking bread. So perhaps if you want a starter, you might know someone who makes their own bread, and they can give you a part of their starter. If
anyone wants a starter, we have a lot.
Or you can order a dried starter online that then you can activate with water.
I didn't know it was dry.
Yeah, I think you can order it just in a little sachet.
Wow.
And you can also grow it from scratch, but it takes a bit longer. You can add some flour to the jar, some lukewarm water, and then keep feeding it every day, the same ratio of flour and water, and eventually it will start to become active with these natural yeasts and bacteria from your home or your fridge or
your
body.
toes.
Yeah.
I tried it though, because I think it was I was like, I want to make sourdough. I can't. I can't do it. But yeah, it was my mother who was like, you can just make your own. Just put some flour and water for like 5 days in the same ratio, and it just went moldy. But maybe you have better luck.
I think that
we're not doing that today.
Well, there was one thing that we noticed that you were doing that wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What
That
did
wasn't
I do?
well, we'll get to that. We'll get to
okay.
it. So I've got my trusty scales here. It's quite helpful to have a good set of scales when making sourdough. We're going to pretend that this is the beginning of my starter. Oh, I need another spoon.
So how many grams of that do you put in?
So I've got around 30 grams there.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have at home, maybe you've heard of something called a mother, a sourdough mother. And what I have at home is a separate jar with around 30 grams or 50 grams of starter in it. And I keep it in the fridge and I feed it perhaps once a week. And this is my mother. And
I don't think this is your mother.
It's my mother because it creates all the other sourdoughs that I make.
Sour mother.
So maybe I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, it's about 50 grams. So I've got around 50 grams and I want to make a loaf. I need a new jar, but I don't think we have any new jars.
We have a cup though.
Oh yeah, a cup will do. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I'll just get one of these cups.
Which one? This
one. Any cup.
There's so many choices of cups. Okay, cool. This is a jar.
What I would do is take maybe half of my mother.
This is so good. I hope your mother is watching this. Hello, Emma. If you are there, apparently we have a mother here.
And then what I do is then start the feeding process. So I'm going to add 50 grams of flour. Any flour will do. I'm not that precious about what flour goes into my starter.
Yeah.
And then 50 grams of water, but we'll get to the water.
Gram or milliliter?
Is it the same? I think if you use the scales, I guess it's easier to just keep it in grams because then it's just. Okay. So
grams or milliliters?
Mm.
But 100 grams of water is 100 milliliters.
Yeah,
It's
the water
the
is
same.
the same.
Okay, so 50 grams of so hang on, 30. No, let's do that again. 30 grams of mother.
Well, it doesn't really matter how much mother you put in.
I can't. It's too funny. Okay, so some amount of mother, but like, can we have roughly how many grams?
I put about 30 grams. Yeah, two
like
spoons, 2
30
teaspoons.
grams. And then 50 grams of flour, and then 50 grams of water. That's a bit warm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lukewarm water. They say 28 degrees is the go-to temperature, but I just stick my finger in and guess. Okay.
And then you use a stick.
And then I use a chopstick to thoroughly mix it. I find chopsticks the best way to mix the starter.
I guess it just sticks to the spoon.
It sticks to everything. Doesn't matter what you do, but it's just good for stirring.
Okay. Nice.
Then what I'm gonna do is I will put a lid on it. This is gonna get awkward.
Pretend that this is a jar.
No, we're gonna go back to this one. So we've got our starter that we have fed, and I'm gonna leave it slightly ajar, and I'm not gonna close it. This is what
Is that what I was
what
doing?
you did, because you need to let it breathe, and if it can't breathe, it dies.
Oh my god! I suffocated my starters. Oh, I feel
Yeah,
so sad
even
now.
worse, you suffocated your mother, which is really bad.
And then you put it in the fridge.
And then I put it in the fridge. So I normally we've got a fridge down here, and I normally keep it in the fridge overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And then every day I feed it another 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water, until about 3 days later we have enough starter to begin making our bread.
So how much starter do you need to begin making bread? Is it 150 grams?
Well, actually, I've used 2 different recipes in this. I said 150 grams here, but I've halved the amount at the moment because I was struggling with my recipe. So we don't need quite as much starter, but it will.
Well, it's good if you have it, or then you can give some away to a friend. There you
go. And we've got our mother here that's looking a little bit sad now. And what I do is I would also feed the mother again before putting it back in the fridge, just so it can grow a little bit.
So more. Feeding is always 50 grams and 50 grams. Is that kind of the vibe or not?
There's a lot of different methods, but I stick with the simple idiot-proof maths of 50 grams and 50 grams.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it works. Because I like it.
And it works
We've been eating a lot of really good sour bread, so it works.
Okay. So let's move these out the way. We're going to actually start making the bread. We need a bowl to put it in, which maybe we didn't quite.
Look for those earlier.
No, this will do.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So.
Yep. Oh, so you put it on the scale as well?
We put it on the scale. I'm going to zero the scale.
There's a lot of precise measurements in this.
And for this recipe, I'm going to do 80 grams of starter. That's not a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too much. Be careful what's under your scale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Whoops.
Okay. Let's do that again.
We're gonna have to do
you want another bowl?
Okay.
80 grams.
80 grams. Yeah.
Nice sticks underneath. It looks so like gooey and good.
Okay.
80 grams.
That's
Cool.
80 grams. And then we're going to put 285 grams of water
So what?
in.
Is it also lukewarm water?
And it's also lukewarm water.
Okay. So it's always lukewarm water. Okay. And it's water first.
I tend to put the water in first.
Okay.
And then we're going to use 510 grams of flour. And this is the recipe from our friends who ran fermentation school at
Oh,
RID.
yeah.
And they have this nice recipe in a zine that they produced for it. And it's a bit simpler than the recipe that I initially was going to try, which is due to the amount of water we're using. We're using a little less water and a little less starter. So it's actually easier to
Is it quicker?
no, it's easier to handle.
Okay.
So it's easier for us to make a loaf from scratch.
Okay.
Okay.
510 grams of flour.
510 grams of flour, 285 grams of water, and 80 grams of starter.
And you're going to mix the flours.
And then I am going to do a combination of the flour because been
why not?
been one of those days. And I was worried I was going to run out of flour. So what I'm doing is a combination of the white flour
And
and the
flour.
stout. And I'm doing 300 grams of white flour and
210.
of the spelt meal.
Yeah. Ulufer's a bit tired today. Or bored.
Okay. And now
Do
maybe
you want to swap? You can do the bread.
maybe
Okay, I get stuck in. Is this where I
Yeah.
get stuck in? Cool.
so
Okay, I'll get my hair out of the way because I think it's gonna get messy.
what we're gonna do is
So what are you doing? What is this action?
we're
Is this
just
crab
mixing
hand?
it all. We're just mixing it all together, and it doesn't need to be smooth or like a perfect ball. We're just mixing it together, and it's going to be this shaggy clump.
Shaggy clump.
A shaggy
This is the
clump.
consistency we're looking for. A shaggy clump.
Yeah,
And you do that with a crab hand. Is this the method?
you can do it with both hands. Yeah.
I don't think I can get them both in. It's quite small.
And at this stage, you'll get a lot of mess on your
Yeah, a
on
shaggy
your
hand
fingers.
too.
Yeah, you get a shaggy hand.
Shaggy hand. Do you think they did this in like ancient bread making times too?
Good question.
I wonder, do you think you would have had to have bowls for this also? Like you couldn't do this on like ground. You get everything stuck to it.
Clay pot.
Yeah, you would need some like pots, so you would have to be quite long. Oh my god, this is just stuck to me,
Yeah.
and this is it. This is what we want. Is this what we want?
Glutinous.
Can you whistle it up?
How do you make this into bread?
Well,
How
it's
do you
gonna,
get it
it's
off your
gonna
hands?
it's gonna make itself really into bread. This is the first stage. So what we're trying to do is mix in all the water and the starter and the flour. And it's already, we're already getting
We're getting the glutinous stuff.
into bread making, which is labor intensive and very sticky.
It's a very sticky business.
I
feel like when I was doing my dumplings, it's like, I don't know, the unleavened, is it how you say it? Unleavened bread, i.e. just like, no yeast involved. Like that dough I can deal with. This is so sticky.
So we've got something that looks a bit like this, and if you try and stretch it, it will probably tear. That's fine at the moment.
Can you show that?
So it's just going to come apart. But what we're going to do is this step called auto-leasing, which is where we're going to let it sit for 30 minutes. You can let it sit for between 30 minutes and 4 hours. And it's going to allow the wheat to generate more gluten.
Okay.
So the starter is going to activate the wheat and generate more gluten in the dough.
So it just needs to sit. Does this need to sit somewhere warm or cold?
Just room temperature is fine. What we need now is a damp tea towel to cover it. So
I'll wash my hands and do that. Does it need to be like wet or just like a bit down?
Just
Or like soaked?
So it's wet.
Like this?
Yeah.
Does it need to be like really wet?
Seems okay.
Yeah.
And we just cover it with a damp tea towel so it doesn't dry out. And then we're going to leave that for 30 minutes.
Okay.
We have
So
one that we did earlier, which is not something.
Here's one I prepared before.
Which is not something you maybe have the luxury of having yourself at this moment. But you will see that the bread now doesn't come apart as easily. It's much
really
more
stretchy. So it's like really like chewing gum, more like, and it doesn't stick to you as much either.
Yeah, I should wash my hands as well. Yeah.
Well, can you show me one?
The stretchiness. So what we're looking is, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, but this seems like pulling at a chewing gum for me. Like it's really, it broke a little bit. But yeah, it's very stretchy. This is really satisfying. Okay, I should leave it alone then. Because I think I shouldn't. I'm really scared that I'm going to ruin this bread. I forgot to say earlier, today, the reason why we have all this luxury of having like multiple bread things is because we're going to bake them in the garden of Het Ootje, which is like behind the tent. And you're all welcome to come and join us and eat this. So we're basically making loads and loads of bread for you guys to eat. So please come from 6 o'clock. We've made some dips as well. Bring friends and sit in the garden and eat bread. And the weather should be good. Like there was a wall of rain this morning. I think you all saw it, but I think it's over. I think it's back to summertime. Anyway, back to Jake. Sorry.
Okay. So where are we now? I'm going to put it back on the scale and I'm going to get my salt.
I was going to ask, when do you put salt in?
And this is the point where we put the salt in. So I'm going to put 10 grams of salt in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's 11.
Oh my god.
And now I normally put a tea towel underneath because this is where it's not kneading, but we're gonna manipulate the dough to mix in this salt, but also to turn it, to give it a little bit more elasticity and develop the glutens in the bread. So I'm just gonna start folding
So
the
you
dough
kind of
in.
fold it like
Like
a
and you'll see I'm not adding any more flour at this point. What I'm doing is I'm using the damp tea towel to make my hands damp, and that means that the bread is not going to stick to my hands. And sometimes it sticks to the bowl. Maybe it's different with the bowl you use, but I also just wipe the bowl and make sure the bowl's damp. This hand wasn't damp enough. And then you get that, and that's what we're kind of trying to avoid a little bit. So what we don't want is to add too much water, because then it gets too difficult to manipulate. And I'm just going to keep folding in the dough.
Can you maybe do like a slow fold? Because I really don't understand what you're doing. It's like,
so I'm kind of pushing it down.
Yeah.
And then I'm folding it over. So I'm pulling it up, folding it over, pushing it down, pulling it up, folding over, pushing it down.
Yeah.
Till all the salt is.
So till you can't feel the salt.
Kind of till I can't feel the salt, but then I'm going to do it a little bit more till we get this more elasticy dough. Yeah. Okay. So if you want, to make your hands a bit damp.
Damp hands, and then fold. And then maybe you can say, why did you choose bread? What draws you to the bread?
Well, I guess.
Wait, am I doing this right?
Yeah,
Push,
maybe put this
then,
under so
it doesn't bash around. Noise. And then fold in. Okay, something like this.
A little bit like that. You can also do it in the air with both hands if you feel. We're just really activating the gluten.
Okay. But why bread?
So I guess what drew me to bread, I was doing a bit of research into early agricultural settlements and made a short film about some early agricultural settlements in the Netherlands. And it's interesting how wheat cultivation.
Can you do this?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Okay.
Stretch and fold.
Kind of changed the landscape. People started in. There's a place called the Fertile Crescent that was in ancient Mesopotamia, and people call that the cradle of civilization, where lots of the early first cities and first modern states almost started, and it was interesting how there was this shift by cultivating wild wheat that grew in the area. And it meant people moved away from a more nomadic existence of hunting and gathering towards a more sedentary existence of wheat production. And it's also incredibly complex, that history, and it's not as clear cut as my simplified version has made it sound. There's lots of there's lots of reasons that people might have started cultivating wheat that didn't necessarily mean that they would always cultivate wheat. But
Was it kind of survival or something? Like, was it?
Well, it
or
was
like, yeah.
maybe at certain times of hardship, people grew whatever they had access to, whether that was wild wheat or hunting and gathering or being a pastoralist or a horticulturalist and using these as survival strategies. But what we see with these modern states is someone figured out that you could store grain, you can harvest it at the same time each year, and then someone realized that you could abstract its wealth in a way and use it as a commodity. You could commodify grain. And then at this point we start seeing these city-states appear that have ruling classes and hierarchical structures that we still see today. And we have a largely agricultural-based society even now.
I was talking to Jake about this kind of stuff before, and how like my great aunt in the village, a long time in Russia, she had to, like everyone, it was Soviet Union, so everyone had to work for the state. So like go work in a field or something. And then sometimes there was a shortage of money, so you'd get your like pay in sugar, bags of sugar or bags of grain. So it was like actual value, and it was really recent that this happened. And yeah, it's interesting that we haven't moved on that far away from that. When was this? Like 4 BC? Mesopotamian, like Sumerian cultures. 500 BC. Okay.
Yeah. And I guess what I was interested in is why we're so drawn to it. What are these reasons that we cultivate wheat and it takes up so much of a large percentage of our diet? Is it because the more people started to grow wheat, the more populations expanded, the less ground there was for hunting and gathering? It's widely known that wheat production requires more labor than hunting and gathering. So
does it?
Logically, it doesn't.
I didn't know that.
It doesn't make sense that people started growing grain for no reason.
I guess it's a security thing then, because you know that every season you will get this grain, whereas like hunting, you would like sometimes run out of animals, or you have to move on, or whereas this was just sort of like seasonally there and you could rely on it or something. I don't know. How is this?
Yeah, this is looking good.
It's like kind of a bowl now.
So I need a bit of damp hands. Yeah, so we should start to see that it's really glutinous. And also, you'll have noticed when you put the salt in that you can feel the dough contract, and it gets tighter and it gets harder to pull it. So when we pull it, it starts to get a little more difficult and into a bit of a tighter ball, and that's when we start to know it's getting ready. And then rather than something that is kind of falling apart and tearing, we have something that's quite smooth and elastic. So yeah, this is getting towards something that we want. I think this is pretty good. I'm gonna just make sure this is a bit damp. And now
Now it's stuck
but
to
now
you.
my hands, yeah. So it's all right. It doesn't need to be perfect at this stage, or it never needs to be perfect. But
I mean, you're a bit of a perfectionist.
well, we've got.
Bread perfectionist.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it, and we're going to wait 15 minutes.
So 30, then 15.
Yeah,
minutes. Okay.
30, then 15, and
Jake normally sets an alarm for these things. Like we literally have bread alarms going off in the house a lot.
yeah,
It's a good tip,
true.
though. It's good.
You have to be regimented, a little bit like these early civilizations. There's like lots of.
How did they do it? They didn't have alarms then.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm going to tell you a bit more about the history of these early settlements. That also going back to your idea of what people used as bowls. So some of the first ceramics that were ever found, or the largest ceramics that have been found in these places, were all identical bowls, really, really badly made, really quick and cheaply done. And their conclusion has been that they used indentured labor, and these were food ration bowls of exactly the same size to feed maybe this army of slaves
that were working on wheat fields.
That were working,
oh my God,
milling the grain and in the cities, and they. Yeah, it's not a very pretty.
Not a pretty history
of bread. And
where was this?
This was there's a few cities. The one I particularly know is this one called Uruk, which is largely recognized as maybe the first city-state.
It's like a Sumerian culture.
And so lots of interesting exploitation is going on with the grain
for the bread
already. So maybe why I'm interested is also, I don't know. I guess I'm interested in it as it's almost like getting to know your enemy or something.
Well, it's such a staple thing that you kind of don't think much of it. Like bread has been feeding us for generations upon generations and kind of been keeping us alive, right? I mean, I say us as like European cultures, but also there's a version of a bread in every culture. And you just kind of don't think that like there could be exploitation happening and having like this really dark history about it or something.
It's this a tendency of agricultural societies, let's say, not to say that things like slavery didn't exist outside them, but they compared to other cultures, sedentary cultures are much more easy to understand what their history is, because they can find physical remains. And nomadic cultures far harder to trace and understand. So we've got our sticky dough. We've also now been tied to the table for however many hours preparing this. So it's
with
kind
your
of
30-minute and 15-minute
there's
alarms.
an idea that people cultivated grain, and grain is a domesticated plant, but there's also talk that grain domesticated humans and made us stay in one place.
Ooh.
Because
I like that.
So
I mean, I wish it didn't, but
I need another tutorial. I'm just going to use this. Because not only do you have to tend the fields, scare away the pests, spend all year looking after it and harvesting it,
And then you have to grind it.
Then you have to grind and mill it, and then you have to make the bread, which takes
hours
days.
and days. And even this is taking a long time.
The next step. So after that gruesome history,
does it get darker?
Does it get
yes.
darker?
Probably.
The next step is this thing called stretching and folding.
Isn't that what we were doing earlier, though? Or is this different?
Yeah, it's a little bit like what we do, but we do this 3 to 4 times.
Okay, but can you
every 15 minutes? So all you're doing is
can I do it?
you're pinching it,
Uh-huh.
kind of pushing the main part of the loaf down and folding it over, and we're just trapping lots of air into the bread.
Oh, so we need like air bubbles in it. So you pinch it and you put it in the middle.
Automatically, kind of.
I should have had. Wait, I need damp hands.
Yeah.
So you really need damp hands the whole time.
Yeah.
It's a very damp experience.
Yeah.
Maybe this is like why this kind of bread was happening here in UK and stuff. Damp life. Okay, so pinch, and then I need to put it in the middle.
Yeah.
Like push it
in, and then go all the way around. Yeah. And you only need to go kind of round once, really.
Okay. Like this.
Yeah.
Oh, that like did a little.
And you can feel it getting a bit tougher, and then sometimes it stretches out again, but that's okay.
Okay, so that's it.
And that's kind of it.
So you just go around once.
And then we'll just pick it up, make it into a ball again.
And then you hide all that mess into this like little bomb over there.
And
okay.
I'm gonna just put a little bit of water on the bottom of the pan.
There is silent water going on here. I really did not know. Cool.
And then we're gonna do that 3 to 4 times every 15 minutes.
Oh my god.
Oh no, sorry. No, that's not right. We're gonna we're gonna do that again
in 15 minutes.
2 or 3 more times, and you have to wait 15 minutes between each one.
So what do you do for 15 minutes in between these things?
I read these books about grain culture.
Nice. But it's such an annoying amount of time. I guess, like, what do you have a minute? Like, because it's 15 minutes, like, you can't really start on something. I don't know. Difficult. Bread is difficult.
It's great for when you are tied to your laptop and need to get away from it for a while.
Which is most people in the last year, so maybe everyone should get making.
Okay, I'm going to put we've got too many.
Too many breads.
After all the stretching and folding, what you want to do is we do what's called our first proof. So we just leave the dough to rise slightly. So it's going to go from, where were we? It's going to go from something kind of like this size to something a bit like that size.
So this is kind of expanded.
So which one is yours?
This one?
This one's before.
Yeah.
This one, yeah, it has grown. I can see it's grown. It's got little air bubbles in it. And it's also, collapsed a little bit out to the side, which is kind of fine now.
Chill.
It's chilled. We're gonna.
So much bread.
We're gonna just do something like that. Next, yeah. So this is
proofing.
Proofing, and this is proof for an hour. So you need that's the first proof. You proof it for an hour.
So hang on, let's do these like minutes again because I'm lost already. So you have. How do you do this? Okay, so what was 30 minutes?
30 minutes is the autolysen.
Okay. Then after that, you add salt and you do the
you add salt.
moving.
Yeah.
And then you leave that for 15 minutes and do the stretch and fold.
Yeah.
And then you leave it for 15 minutes.
Do the stretch.
Do
and fold.
another stretch and fold.
Another 15
Another
minutes.
15 minutes.
Do the stretch.
Do
and
another
fold.
stretch and fold.
There's an optional 15 minutes. Do another
If you're feeling like you need an extra 15 minutes of downtime, you do another stretch and fold.
and
And then you leave it again
for an hour
for an hour.
for the first proof.
Wow. So how long has that been now? Like in total? 30, 15,
2
15,
3 hours.
3. Oh my God.
Plus the 3 days in the fridge for the starter.
Who came up with this and how did they do it? That is what I would like to know.
Okay. And now what we're going to do is this thing called a bench rest. It's something that we all...
There's the mother, there's the bench rest.
Did you know that baking is now predominantly this kind of culture of sourdough baking is predominantly dominated by men?
Yeah, it's
Can
always
you tell?
this, like it's the same as the beer. The beer was like a woman's work, basically. Like the first brewers were women. And like what happened? Why is it all basically dominated by men now?
But I saw in Rotterdam, I saw a moped go past with 2 women riding it and carrying
Whoa.
these giant kegs,
Yes. This
just
is what
one
we
on
want.
each thigh, and it said Brouwen van Vrouwen.
Yeah.
Brewing, like
I know them.
you know these 2.
Yeah,
And
but
they
like,
were-
come on, there's like 2 in like a whole world of beardy brewer boys. Like, this is, it's not fair, is what I'm saying. How-
Okay.
Anyway, feminism, people. Back to Jake. You need a spatula. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, some kind of plasticky thing helps. This is a silicone spatula, which I then have dipped and made damp in the water, and I'm going to use it to scoop out my loaf onto a very lightly floured board. That's maybe not quite light enough.
But I think you kind of, it's quite a rough one, so maybe it's good. So you kind of scoop it all out. And
And
there
then
it is.
I think I'm going to just do a little bit of shaping.
I need this, I guess.
And we're gonna
Oh, it looks like a little
we're
bread
gonna do
now.
this bench rest. So the bench rest, it needs to. I have no idea what's going on here. Like with the bench, I'm gonna be really honest that I don't know.
But in a nutshell, does it just need to sit on the side? Is
For
this
half an hour,
right?
and it's gonna collapse out a little bit. And supposedly this is something to do with laminating the gluten. I don't really know what that means, but it's to do with some gluten, letting the glutens mature in the bread.
This is such a science, but I'm like, I want to go back to the like people who were starting to make this
But
stuff.
supposedly going back to the brewers, the women in charge of the breweries, the cultures for yeasts would come from the brewers. So
I
they go
heard
to the
this.
brewer.
Yeah, they would pick up the yeast from the brewery to then put into the bread.
to
So
put
that
into
was like the
bread.
original starter then.
Yeah.
And was that like when? Yeah, medieval times or
This is
something?
way back.
Way back. Okay.
Like also Uruk, the early civilizations.
Oh yeah, because even in Egypt they had beer in Egypt. They were like one of the first beer brewers.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the next step?
I don't know.
I've forgotten. So what I'm going to do,
So this sits for
because
half
we
an hour.
haven't had, we're not going to wait for half an hour,
Why not?
is it will collapse out a little bit. And what now we're going to do is we're going to shape it. So this, we're going to shape it, and then we're going to let it do its second proof. And then after that, it's ready to go in the oven.
Oh my god.
So-
So how long is the second proof?
Either 2 hours on the side or overnight in the fridge,
Okay.
depending on your baking routine or what your life or something.
It's
Um,
like, how has this not taken over your life, actually? This is like a lot.
it has a little bit. Okay, so what
It's okay.
what I'm doing here is I'm going to shape the bread. So I've got quite an easy method to shape the bread. I'm going to kind of parcel the bread. I'm going to, on one
You
side,
need damp hands at this point too.
yeah, damp hands is kind of good. I'm going to fold it over on this side.
This is a bit rude, this. For
I'm going to
some
fold it
reason.
over this side. I'm going to fold it over this side.
Ugh, this looks like you're hurting me.
And then I'm going to fold it over. I'm really going to fold it over. I'm going to fold it over so it kind of traps it all inside.
That looks like a tongue.
Yeah, I'm going to get you to do it in a minute.
Oh, okay.
And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spin it. I do this thing where I kind of twist it and push it back at the same time. So I like twist it and push it back. And this is just making it into a nice ball shape, which is maybe more of a cultural thing than anything. Like this recipe for sourdough, we're doing a European sourdough recipe, which hasn't changed in maybe 1,000 years. Like bread is a very cultural thing, and in every culture make bread differently. There's some interesting things where white flour is seen as, in most cultures, there's a few exceptions, but white flour is seen as elite for the ruling classes, and it becomes an aspirational flour that the rest of the civilization aspires to eat on their dinner table.
But you were saying it was really wasteful.
But then the reason white flour was made was only for the ruling classes was that it wastes, in the grinding process, it wastes 30% of the wheat.
Which is like,
so it's
half.
the first kind of sign of conspicuous consumption is going on there.
But I mean, like, yeah, and then because it was seen as this elite kind of white bread situation in the UK in Victorian times, bread was adulterated with all kinds of things to make it look white. It's like it was full of chalk and straw, I think, even wood shavings, like all kinds of things, just so that people, because it was much more like, the white grain was more expensive to purchase, so they was just putting anything and everything into it, which is why in the recent years there's been a shift recently to go to more these kind of artisanal breads and whole grains, as people realized that there was just no nutritional value in white bread anymore. So this is why sourdough is coming back.
Where did the bowl go that came out of?
There.
Okay. Great. So next,
But I didn't.
Oh yeah, you didn't.
I didn't do it.
But we'll do it again. We'll just repeat it,
Okay.
and then we'll repeat this step because this is quite an important step.
Okay.
Some of you at home might have this or heard of this thing called a banneton, which is like a wooden woven bowl that sometimes has a fabric cover, and then you'd flour. It would be floured. I have never had one of them, and I've heard they're quite expensive. So what I do is take the bowl I was using, get just an ordinary dishcloth, and then I add some flour to the dishcloth, which seems to be the DIY method.
You just sort of dust it around.
Just dust it.
Oh, there's quite a lot of flour in there.
And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this face down. So I'm going to...
So your mushroom down.
Yeah, bottom facing up. And then I'm just going to do a little...
Pinching.
You're
pinching the bottom.
Pinch it in and trap a little bit more air in. And this is why you want a very lightly floured... lightly floured board, because if there's too much flour here, this is not going to stick to itself.
So it needs to be a bit sticky.
So it needs to still have a little bit of moisture.
This looks like you've made a pie and you've put something inside it. You
But
stuffed it.
the stuffing is just all the air we've now trapped inside it through all the stretching and folding and shaping. And that's what we want to keep inside it, because we want these air bubbles. So this is why you
make all this stretching and folding. It's just to make the air bubbles.
Yeah, to make it rise in the oven.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're going to leave this uncovered, because drying this out is a lot easier for when we bake it. And we're just going to leave it for 2 hours on the side. And then we're going to bake it.
So now at this point, this would be like 5 hours long or something after the 2 hours. Because this is not proofing anymore, or is it? Or is this the second proofing?
This is the second proof, yeah.
Okay.
So do you want to do that again?
Yes.
So this is lightly floured. Yeah. You're going to get the spatula. I've put it down somewhere.
By the way, we are 1 hour 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, ask away.
In the chat.
In the chat. There is a chat somewhere in there.
It's not wet.
Oh, it needs to be wet. Okay, so hang on. So I wet it.
Yeah. Just damp. Yeah.
Going into the wetting. And then I just... Oh, this really works. Maybe I show it. You just kind of unstick it from the bottom. Oh, this is really satisfying, guys. This is really good. I think this is the best tool ever invented.
Thank you.
Again, how did people? Do you actually how do you think they were grinding the grains? Like the first bread makers. Do you think they were using stones, or are there like tools that we know of?
They had these stone. They kind of look a little bit like a sauna or something, where they've built this
sauna,
like an old.
Do I need this still?
Yeah, an old. There's these stone seats. I guess brick seats, and then there was this milling chamber where they separated the chaff from the grain. Maybe this is the grinding bit. I don't think I'm going to be able to describe it very eloquently.
Chamber.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I need wet hands again? Or...
This is the bench rest. So.
Oh, this is the bench rest.
But I tend to shape it a little bit before we do the bench rest. So I just, and then we got the bench rest, and then it will splodge out for 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe what's going to help you now is if it's just a little bit damp here.
Oh, okay. That's random.
Because what you're going to do is the stretching out.
Right. So after it's rested, then you stretch the thing out. So pretend that this was half an hour later. And then I do this.
Yeah, you can take quite like a big bit.
This feels so wrong.
Yeah, and fold
And
it
then
over.
fold it.
And then on the other side.
I'm just going to move the border in. Oh my God. Like this?
Yeah.
And then
Fold it over.
Oh my God. This feels like it really is
And
manipulating.
then maybe this side. And we're just going to go to fold it to here this time.
Like all the way.
Yeah, just like that. And then the next one, we're gonna do the crazy one in the next one, which is easier with white bread if we just done a white loaf. So because this has got wholemeal in it, it's a bit trickier to do.
So then I fold it all.
Yeah, we're gonna try and
tuck
it in like a sausage roll or something. Yeah. Yeah, so that's looking good.
And do we do one more?
No. And now it's kind of, you're going to shape it.
Like this?
Yeah. And you twist and you kind of pull it into itself.
Okay.
And this is the difficult part with is the board lightly floured enough or too floured? It's tricky. And like tuck it in under the sides really.
And kind of spin.
So we get this perfect European loaf, which has been a bit adulterated with it's
chalk.
A bit, it's very middle class, this loaf, with the half white, half spelt.
I mean, class is a really big thing in the UK with the bread. There was, with everything, but bread is a real.
Yeah, I read that there is a history of these bread recipes where nicer bread was fed to racehorses than the farmhands who took care of the horses.
Oh my God. But there's also this thing of like upper crust. So like the way it was baked would be in this oven and the bottom would basically burn. Like this whole thing would be put in the oven and they didn't have any like things to put it into. So the bottom was burning and that would be fed to like the the workers of the house or something. Get the ball. Okay.
Banneton.
Oh, I make the banneton now.
Yeah. You can use this one. That's okay, we'll wash it.
And then I flour.
And then you flour.
Yeah, so the bottom basically was given to the workers of the house or whatever. And that would be the burnt bit, basically. And the upper crust of the bread was given to the lords, which is why, that's a term. Like upper crust is like the best bit.
They didn't even have the.
Is this too much flour?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Is that a problem? Should I put some back? Or
It's okay.
Okay. And then I pick up this little bread baby.
Put it face down.
Oh yeah, this is and then I flip it and shove it in.
Yeah.
And then I need to do what?
From the middle.
From the middle.
And then pinch it in. Yeah. Or maybe you're right from the outside in. Kind of.
Oh my God, this is so hard to do.
Yeah, we're just trying to make it into a bit of a tighter ball.
Oh, okay. So
okay.
Okay, into a little pasty or something, little pie, like this.
Yeah, that's looking good.
A little, massive dumpling is what it looks like to me now with all this painting. Cute. And then this needs to sit for 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Mad. This is mad.
2 hours. 2 hours
Look.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we do the suddenly 2 hours later.
2 hours have
2
passed.
hours have passed.
Like we need to do this like what is it called? Montage.
Yeah, something like that.
Is anyone still watching? Because we're just silly over here today. Okay. Dutch oven.
This is a
Casserole dish.
casserole dish.
That's what they call it in America.
This is really good for baking in the oven. So this is the fact that it's got a lid is going to trap the steam in and really help the bread to rise. So
And this is a cast iron thing, which is the best. But I think, what were you using before this?
I just used 2 baking trays, one on top of the other.
Oh, okay.
So it was very improvised. But anything where you can put in the oven and make a lid will work. I've got semolina here.
From Russia, I think, is it?
Via Germany.
Via Germany.
I'm going to put this on the bottom of the pan. You can either use semolina or you can cut some baking paper to the right size. But semolina will burn at
it toasts.
It doesn't burn as easily as that, and it's going to stop it sticking from the bottom of the pan.
How much?
A generous amount. I'm going to put more. I don't.
Okay, another question I have is like, because I've seen you do this at home, the pan is hot at this point, no?
Yes. Sorry, I missed a step in all these steps.
So you preheat the oven to what temperature?
Yeah, this is where it's going to get a bit conceptual because we don't have an oven in here. And we preheat the oven to 230 or 250 degrees, preferably on a conventional oven. That's better than a fan oven for getting these kind of crispier crusts. It's baking hot, so then I've taken it out the oven.
Smoke coming off.
Smoke comes out of it. I pour in some semolina. I'm very careful because it's really hot. And I take my loaf, and this is the really tricky part.
And you have to drop the bread in.
We drop the bread in. Whoops, I dropped it the wrong way. You shouldn't.
You wouldn't be able to do this, it would be too hot.
Wouldn't be able to do it. So our loaf has entered the pan.
It has entered the pan.
And now what we're going to do, obviously in reality, I couldn't hold the pan here. But what we need to do is we're going to flour it and score it so it opens up in the oven.
And this is...
So
what
I'm
happens?
going to put a bit of flour
is,
over the top.
Why do you have to
So
cut
we've
it?
got something like this. So I want to let the air, because there's going to be so much air inside, I want to let it come out and let it explode a bit. So it will expand exponentially and not
just
collapse or actually maybe one side will break. I think
one of your first loaves, like the whole top just kind of came off.
Yeah,
it was
so
like separate from the bottom.
It'll become a bit easier when I show one of the pre-made loaves that we've got. Yeah. And then I've got a very sharp knife, and I'm going to make a pattern on it. I'm just going to do a very simple pattern on this one of a crosshatch.
You cut it quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
It's not just like a little plop.
So we got a kind of a crosshatch. So I floured first, and then I did a crosshatch, and then we put the lid on. Take out my glass. And put it in the oven for 20 minutes. At the 20-minute mark, we take the lid off.
Right, okay.
And it will have risen. It will probably still look quite white. Hey, do you want to come in? Yeah, you can come in. It's fine, yeah.
But I put it just here.
Yeah,
that's okay.
That's
we
good.
can
Yeah.
we can do that. It's fine.
And then we put it in for about 15 to 20 minutes longer. I often turn the temperature of the oven down at that point.
To what?
200.
Okay, so from 230 to 200. Okay.
And then
how long does it bake for?
And then it bakes for 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, so 20 minutes and then 20 minutes.
Yeah.
This is such long process.
And then
there's a magic trick.
There's a magic trick. We should get something a little bit like this. And you can see that where I've scored it, the air has escaped and left this very nice pattern on the bread.
And there's semolina on the bottom. There's also, we have another one. There's two.
And then this one is the same mix. So this one is roughly half spelt and half white. And this one is just all white flour.
It's a bit puffier then.
Which is always going to be a bit puffier. Will always grow a bit more.
Is this the one you made today? Or is this the one you made today?
This is the one I made today.
This is yesterday.
And this is yesterday. And when you take it out, it should sound hollow when you tap it on the bottom. That's when you know it's done.
And this is the semolina next up.
And this is the semolina on the bottom. And then we've got our steaming hot loaf. And before we cut it, we want to leave it an hour.
And then eventually you will eat this bread.
And then eventually, should we do the honors? Should we open it up and then?
Do we need a cutting board?
We do need
Which is kind of covered that word. Let's do it a little tap. I don't want to wet it. It'll be even worse if you wet it. Okay.
And hopefully we'll see some air bubbles.
Oh yeah.
So we've got some air bubbles in there. And that's pretty good for a slight wholemeal loaf, I think.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Should we cut this one? And I'll probably show you the difference. And this is the white loaf. And we've got like much bigger holes.
You want to cut another slice?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna eat some right now.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
go.
Those are the holes. So this is the difference between.
Yeah. So I was making sourdough.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks for joining us and a bit of a history of the sourdough
Little
bread, a bit of a dark,
sour, dark journey of bread.
I didn't quite go as dark as
you can.
We skipped out the part of how when you start to concentrate lots of people and domesticated animals and plants you also bring along other domesticates, which are
Diseases.
bacteria and viruses, and
So bread was causing like epidemics or something.
yeah,
No way.
wheat cultivation, and they say that an epidemic is just the symptom of a sedentary society, rather than it just it is both caused and also destroys the society. It's caused by the society, but it also destroys it at the same time.
Well, it's delicious though.
And this is our problem. It's also
This is our delicious problem.
delicious. So yeah, this is the perverse artistic research into sourdough. Yeah.
Great. Okay. That's it.
That's it. Any questions, just ask them in the chat. And
Myra says hello.
hey,
Hey,
man.
Merve.
Hello.
And we can, I can maybe post up the schedule with the times as well. I think that would be
Maybe that's
very helpful.
useful.
Yeah.
Because it's quite a lot of steps. And yeah, and you can always rewind. It will be online. You can. Sorry, I'm chewing. This is really bad. My etiquette has gone out the window. Oh, Ulufer's come. Okay. Maybe we should stop because we just. But yeah, thank you for joining us on this bread journey, everyone. And thank you, Jake, for taking us on the bread journey. And I'm going to try and bake one.
Okay.
This is, I feel like I've been challenged now. I have to do one. Wish me luck, please, because I will inevitably forget something. Yeah? Have a good day. And yes, see you guys at 6. Come to Attent at 6 and help us eat this. We have so many loaves. So yeah. See you soon. See you at the next live feed.